Okay.
Sick. So, once again, how are you? How's this year been?
So we're going to now rehearse that we haven't been talking for 5 minutes while I was setting things up. But hello, everyone. Today, I am very happy to have Archeco's live sound engineer, Tyler Fritzel. Tyler joined us in a very whirlwind type fashion when a year ago, plus a couple weeks, and that time frame is important to note. A year plus 2 weeks, we were asked to do a leg of the Periphery tour, but we were asked 2 weeks before the first show, and it started in San Francisco, which is not here. And you live in Boston, so
Correct,
it's not
yes.
there either. And so all of a sudden we needed to be there. We needed to get the bandwagon. We needed to get Phil to drive it. We needed to get everyone there. We needed a gear. I think we made new merch, and we made a slightly new stage setup with the banners and the kick drum head. And then we had to get there. Oh my gosh. So it's nice to see you.
Likewise, man.
Especially since today is 1 year. You were mentioning that we flew there, and we actually met in the airport.
Yep. I saw you with the Kiesel bag, and I was going to run up and be like, dude, sick. What kind of Kiesel you got? And then I was like, oh, shit, it's Joey. What's up, man?
Yeah. That was really funny. We ended up, I think it was in Chicago. We connected together.
Yeah.
And it was exciting to be like, okay, so now we can start talking about this. Because obviously we were both, I remember specifically in it must have been 2013 or something, where we were at some Worcester show for Periphery together in the Berkeley days.
Yeah.
And you I think you took a guitar lesson. You had a guitar there.
Yes.
And,
that did happen.
And just to be then 7 years later, flying across the country together to go open on this leg was very, you try to be what's the word? Low key about it. They're like, oh yeah, it's just a tour. But it wasn't. It wasn't just a tour. It was very fun and very cool to play for people that you admire.
It was surreal. Every night, I would be lying if I didn't say that I was incredibly nervous. Every night, 15 minutes before hit, I was just oh my God, grinding my teeth, looking at my fingernails or whatever, just I can't mess up. And then as soon as that first note hit, I'm just yes. This wasn't your first time mixing a live show, obviously, but did you see it as important to hide that? Because to me, it seemed like you hit it pretty well. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to come off as nervous at all because, I wanted to present myself as a confident engineer, which I've been mixing live for two and a half years at that point, and had done a tour prior and a cruise ship tour as well. So it wasn't
Did you do some of the venues we did on that other tour?
Actually, no, we didn't. It was a much smaller kind of run than that. So I think that may have been why, because just being Periphery and plenty, and you guys as well, just artists that I have looked up to and for years, right?
Yeah.
And just being on the road with them, it's okay, I got to play it real low key. Try to be as chill
I think
as
it was a
possible.
huge factor. It was probably a lot of fun for you. That just one of my favorite things about the size of that tour was just how good the sound system was every night.
Oh man!
And I think that's so important to mention that if the tour is a level under that or 2 levels under that, the sound system quality could be way more random.
Yes,
in the room treatment and how did that give you a lot of confidence going in every night that you're well, at least this thing sounds great?
It did. It certainly you guys made my job the easiest because if you don't have good players, there's nothing you can do about that. You
just mix out the suck, right?
Yeah, exactly. I use the de-sucker mics on everything. But yeah, it definitely once you hit multiple venues in a row, especially when they're of the same company, the Fillmore's, you become acquainted with what
system they have. They're using L Acoustics and the Soundcraft consoles or the Midas Pro 2s.
A lot of those Soundcraft ones.
Yeah, which that was everywhere. My first time ever using those. So it was really interesting, but it was a great experience because we had time to sound check. We had time to do all this stuff, which on that first tour that I did with Suffocation, Belphegor, Abiotic, and Necronomicon, we didn't have that time. It was 15-minute changeover.
Those are much more complicated band names than the Periphery Plea Archeco.
Right,
you could almost you could tell what genre it is just by those band names that you listed.
Yeah, absolutely. And also what type of venues you would play.
But I mean it's important. I guess it must have helped a lot then that because Ronnie, who did both Periphery and Plini's sound, didn't use those boards.
No, he did not.
So you just got to play on them a bit.
And it was great because it was. I know I've probably said it before, but it's just. It was such an incredible learning experience being able to challenge myself to learn a new console every night. It's all the technicality is theoretically the same. It's just how to apply it in these different situations and these different systems. That was really awesome. So,
that's sick. Yeah, it's so obviously in your perfect world you'd bring a board of your own.
Yeah. And it would be the same room. Moving, city to city.
That's true. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's. I mean, I think in our future at some point, hopefully that's a thing. I don't know what the future is right now, but at some point, if we were to go out and even if you have the 16 channel controllers that move faders with that speak to our stage box or something. I know that's something we've talked about within the band, moving towards. Versus that physical splitter.
Yeah.
That how many channels died on that splitter?
Oh Lord.
Enough.
way too many for how short that run was.
Yeah. Seismic Audio. Please send us a new splitter because I think we're at 5 or 6 channels out of 32, which is that's a lot.
Yeah, it was rough. But I mean, kind of tailing back, props to you because in 2 weeks, you got all of this situated for everyone in the band, and yourself included, in all the work that you have in your personal life. That's just remarkable to be able to maneuver around that many things and make it happen.
Yeah,
I was incredibly impressed by that.
I think about that at times of pat myself on the back, but at the same time, it's how could you not? You just get so motivated when you think about what this tour is going to be. And what it could mean for the band, that it's it's a no-brainer to just throw yourself into it. I mean, I got sick twice. Within that 2-week period, I had some sort of stomach bug and some other just immune shutdown because it was so stressful. It was very stressful. But
I couldn't imagine, yeah.
But the fact that we suddenly had you on board, so I knew that oh my gosh, if I had to go and speak to a house engineer every night, oh my gosh, that'd be a whole nother level. So the fact that I was Tyler is, and I would see, you mentioned that you were stressful, that you were stressed a bit, but not that I saw you were stressed, but I did see you intensely caring very early on in the day, usually, of looking over at the board. And then even after our sound check, messing with stuff just to be we only get 20 minutes at this audience every night, and as on a whole, I think, the videos I saw from that tour were it was very fun. It was very, we couldn't be, and the set I think lended itself to a more aggressive mix style because we couldn't be anything but the Afterburger version of Archeco for 20 minutes. That's just the screaming thing for, there's no bloom in that set list,
Yeah, it was full power constantly. It was awesome. It was such a good time.
So, yeah, it was cool to see just every night how you would get to know the board. And then after you probably had it at a point that would be totally fine, still continuing after sound checks and stuff to be but that tom is not gated right, and I think the drum gates in particular were always this thing that you seem to be super stoked to get right.
Yeah, it was the Soundcraft consoles, man. I could not figure out how to manipulate the gates in the way I wanted them to. But eventually, you know, you were like, I kept hearing this like sound, and you were like, "Are you sure it's not the gate?" And I like went through and just adjusted the attack times a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, it was cool.
Right.
Thank you."
That's right, because it was like a release of it. Probably,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think it was in Dallas.
It was like
Dallas or Houston,
like a little click, and we thought it was the splitter. Dying. Yeah.
Yeah, that bothered that bothered the hell out of me. I was like, "What is going on?" I could not figure it out.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
So you mixed us, but it was just sort of like that tour was a lot of fun. It was like the tip of the iceberg. So like, what was your mixing journey in Boston and Everett? Like, what led to? Because you weren't doing that for the last 10 years. It was like the last 2 years. So like, what made you want to get into that line of work?
Well, dude, to be completely honest, I wanted to be able to communicate my band Myth of Eyes needs better at shows with engineers that we worked with, because I kept realizing throughout all the venues that we played that I had no idea what I was talking about or how to explain kind of what we needed. So I posted a Facebook status, and I was like, looking to get into live sound. Anyone have any recommendations?
Oh my gosh! So this status probably exists, right?
It does.
That's hilarious.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And my good buddy Dave Cohen of Equilibrium Guitars commented this guy's name, Jeffrey Kessler, who I had never met prior, and we started talking. And he was like, "Yeah, come to this venue." It was the Boston Library, Public Library.
Oh.
Hello. Yeah.
That was terrifying. Hi, girl. Hi, girl. You're officially in the podcast now. So yeah, go ahead.
So I went to the Boston Public Library. It was I think in September of 2017, and the guy was like, "All right, let's push some cases," and I was like, "Okay, I don't really know what that means." And he's like,
"Yeah,
four-corner power, like, I don't know what that means. What is four-corner power? He's like, put power strips on all the corners of the stage. I was like, oh, okay. And like, I didn't understand any of it. And I did probably 10 or so gigs with him just doing that, just trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And he really started to teach me and, like, showed me how it worked, like, very in-depth. And
that's cool.
I read a lot. I read the Yamaha Sound Reinforcement Handbook, which is like, I would not recommend. It's literally like
it's a dry
manual.
read.
Yeah, it is. Have you read it?
No.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's literally just like a user manual on how sound works. It's just like, oh gosh, 400 pages of that.
That's so cool, because like with everyone, there's your drive to, in anything in music or audio tech, there's always your drive to learn and get it done. But then there's also that person who steps in who doesn't really have a reason to help you a ton, but they, for some reason, like I know I have those people in my life in like production and
they're
keyboards and music and like, yeah, it's great to have that person who you can shout out as being like, if you hadn't dealt with me being a beginner for a second, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere, or as quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely owe that all to Jeff, man. I could sense it too. That first time I worked with him, he was like, no BS, very straightforward. And he's like, if you don't, like, he was like I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, like a football coach or something.
Yeah.
He's like, if you don't put time into this, if you don't take it seriously, it's not going to work, and I will never work with you again. I was like, all right, it sounds good.
So you went and got the Yamaha handbook that day.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. And we hit it off, and he's been a great mentor to me and a friend. And
nice.
Everything, my entire career transpired through that single interaction.
So
much.
After the Boston Public Library, what were like the next steps? Like, was it just a snowball?
Slowly, yeah. Maybe a little bit quicker than I would have expected. But yeah, I just kept doing more of those gigs with him. And then it got to a point where he invited me to start working at the Hard Rock Cafe here in Boston, where he was like the main sound engineer provider, so to speak. So he would hire me for a few gigs here and there, and then doing some other freelance work for that wedding company that I initially met him through. He had me start doing like A2. So not quite A1, which is like running the show and, calibrating RF for wireless mics and all that stuff. So I was just doing like the simple ceremonies and just, really, really easy, low key kind of stuff. But it's like those tiny steps that you got to take to get to a point where you can do them all out.
Yeah.
Which I still don't. I do feel comfortable doing them now. But man, the owner of that company tried to get me to do A1 gigs for a really long time, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Like I have to set up an entire venue essentially. Set up all the speakers, set up the menu or the mains, the board, run the whole show, get everything sound checked in 2 hours. And
2 hours. Wow.
It's for a wedding, like really expensive people's weddings, like major kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable potentially ruining somebody's most important day.
Man, the money in the wedding industry is absurd.
It is, especially up here in New England.
Yeah. It's a destination stuff. I mean, my town is a destination wedding town, Lake Placid, and I mean, there's venues around here that it would never be a sniff shy of 10,000. For like these receptions and even up to like 50,000. It's insane.
Oh yeah, like minimum.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's absurd. But it's good for audio engineers and musicians, and there's work there, and so obviously then that was going well, and then you mentioned that metal tour, and then the art check, and so then COVID happens, right? And so have you mixed a show since the Brooklyn show?
I have not, dude. I have not actually mixed a show. I have done some A2 work through this company, which about a year after I did that gig with Jeff, he led me on to this company, High Output, where I did this Forbes 30 Under 30 event and did like monitors and A2'd for Marshmello, essentially, the like EDM DJ. So that was like my first big gig where I was like, whoa, this stuff is crazy.
That's cool.
But yeah, after that, dude, like I've only done 2 political events.
Yeah, I feel like it would be A2, obvious to say like when I meant mix shows, I meant more like mix anything. Obviously, I know that shows haven't happened.
Yeah,
but
no, I was A2, so I didn't actually get to mix it.
Ah,
I was just running cables and ringing out a few things here and there, but I was the person on stage with the mic and ringing out monitors, not actually doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think a common thing has been for live engineers to seek out like mixing work within the box. So have you like done any of that stuff, or like what have you filled the gap with,
Yeah, like I had mentioned earlier, just I've been doing like a lot of writing for myself, just to try and get my own creative juices going again, because I do love writing, but since I was working so much, I really didn't have the time to do it.
Yeah, it's really hard to fit in.
Yeah, it could be difficult. So this, I mean, it's like I take it as a blessing and a curse. Like I had a really packed year for 2020. Like it was pretty much booked all the way throughout the year.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to it, but it's like the blessing part of it is that I did kind of get the chance to get back in tune with what I really loved doing outside of that.
Yeah.
So it was good. But like mixing wise, I've done a few masters here and there. I've mixed like an EP, but nothing sustainable, I guess, financially.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's so hard to tell what the future is, but you mentioned they weren't here for that earlier conversation. So what's this new venture with the visual thing that you were mentioning?
Oh, yeah. So a few months ago, my really good friend Tony Simone, Zen Beast Media, we just hang out all the time. He was the drummer for Abiotic on that like death metal Suffocation tour. And we became really close. And he's done a lot of really great visual effects work for myself, Myth of I, and other just awesome bands. And continue, like right now he's working on some huge projects that I'm really, really excited and happy for him to be able to like work on.
Nice.
But essentially it's just, we were noticing that there was kind of some issues on like hitting deadlines and making sure he is actually charging an appropriate price, because he was way underselling himself like a lot. So we had a talk and we were like, dude, you could be charging twice, 3 times as much as you are for the work that you're able to put out.
Yeah.
And so I've pretty much just been like kind of managing calendars and, you know, trying to negotiate deals and stuff like that. And it's gotten to a point where we have more clients than what he's really able to handle, because he's the only one doing the actual visual effects work. So I am now in a position where I'm trying to learn Blender so I can help him do basic stuff so he doesn't have to waste his time doing you know, the unimportant grunt work stuff.
Man, I'd be, because you're so nice, I think I'd be more worried to negotiate with someone like you than someone who's like super hardball. You just like, you're super nice. Like, I think you probably would be a good job of just being like, well, it's, you know, it's this price, but you know, man, your stuff is so good.
Well, I'm actually dealing with that right now.
I love your music, so like, you'll pay this, right?
Yeah.
No, that's hilarious.
It's funny.
You're like, yeah. So I think your personality is worth bringing up, and just because it's like, it's a great time on tour.
Yeah.
So I think the cool thing is that it's not an act at all, and that's what makes it great. Like you're such a good hang. So like, where does that like lightheartedness come from for you? Is that like your parents? Like, is that like just your time in Boston? Has that developed more just like knowing that that's what sound engineers have to be? Because some sound engineers aren't as bubbly or as like,
I would say they're quite the opposite.
Yeah, a lot of them. So it's like a nice. It's rare that you find, and we had one. In his name's Dave Billings. He does Monument Sound.
Yeah,
and this is now the second week in a row where I've talked about Dave Billings. So I'll probably have to talk to him at some point.
Well, hey, you talked to him, or you talked to me about him quite a bit on that tour. And
so he's nice, and he's also really good, you know. And you like don't always get that. So like, do you take that as seriously, consciously, as being very good at your job? Like, do you see that as an equal part?
When it comes to the job, I see it as my job is to make the client as happy as possible.
Yeah.
Like, not just happy, but comfortable. Because if the artist isn't comfortable on stage, they're not going to be able to perform as well as they can. And again, like I mentioned, you guys made my job so incredibly easy because of how incredible of performers and players you are. So if I can work with artists that feel comfortable and can play to their best, it makes my job easier. And that's just a win-win for everybody. And just as a person, like, I haven't really thought about that too much, but I don't like making people upset. I don't like having bad conversations or, like hard conversations. Obviously they're necessary to some extent, but it's just like, I don't know, why put energy into that mindset of, or just like being a downer. Like, obviously people have that, and I do as well all the time, but it's like, I shouldn't try and focus on how that feels, because if you think about it, it's like, we're alive, and that's pretty remarkable. Just in general. So.
We're alive, and that's pretty remarkable is a great album name. So I hope someone uses that if you don't. I always think it's worth mentioning. We haven't talked too much since the last tour, and we didn't get to follow up or we had a tour in November that probably we would have had you on, had it all gone well. And
of 2020?
Of 2020, yeah. And we never got to experience that second go of it where we could the periphery leg was great, but it was rather short.
It was, yeah.
And we didn't get to I feel like we didn't get to oil the machine even more and just be like bing bang boom every night, like this is the system now. And I feel like it would have gotten to a point on that, because that tour was going to be like 5-6 weeks, and
oh wow,
it would have been like, yeah, I feel like by the end of that, we would have had, not only would we have honed the sound of our Checo Live to like a really good point, but also just like the relationship between the band and you and everything could have just continued to get strong, which is what I've seen between a lot of the best sound guys that I find on like some other tours we've been on. They often have like a strong personal relationship with the band as well.
Sure.
And that seems to just a lot of confidence between that the band has for the sound engineer comes from that. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I'm sure you know, man, when you're doing a long tour, things can get dicey, personality-wise sometimes.
Yes.
In my first tour, the Abiotic tour, we were in a 15-seater van, and there was 5 of us for 6 weeks.
Oh my.
No trailer. It really horrible routing. It was like driving wise. It was hard, but like that's the thing. I wasn't getting paid for that tour at all because it was my first tour, so I wanted to put myself in that position because it's what I wanted to do. I was like, dude, well, since I was like 12, I want a tour. So
that's
I was
awesome.
like, okay, here's an opportunity. I'm not going to make any money from it, which was a really bad decision now, Yeah, but I guess that doesn't really matter. But it about 4 weeks, about a month into it, it started to get really tense.
Yes.
In some regards. But I always tried to just, be like, hey, it's cool. Like, we're on tour. We get to do something that, nobody else really gets to do. So let's revel in that fact alone. But.
Yeah, man. Well, I promise, we're gonna get out there again. I don't know what year it is. I don't know what decade it is gonna be in, but or who's gonna show up. But we'll try to at least get you a solid 6-pack to end the night with.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. Of course, yeah. You're totally worth what you charge just for all the things we've talked about of like, just making the vibe super strong. So
definitely
that was a good time, and that was I think it's super cliche to be like, well, the bus made everything easier or something, but having that these things are called bandwagons, and they are essentially a large RV that's specifically made to be a touring vehicle for bands. And but what I think the best thing about it is it becomes a sort of like safe spot to be in a venue that usually doesn't feel like, it's your home. If you're in a van, you don't have anywhere to retreat to during the night at any point. So to be able to like climb on there for a second and like go into your suitcase that's in your bunk and like, I don't know, just have a little bit of a zone, even if it's a bunk, like that was huge psychologically.
It is. And also a driver. I mean,
not having to deal with that. Yeah. Did you have to drive on that other tour?
I did.
Oh, yeah, that's brutal. So
it was fine. I mean, it's also beautiful though. Like, going through Northern California, like driving at 6 a.m., seeing the sunrise over these crazy mountains, like going into Oregon. It's insane. It's not anything I would have ever experienced otherwise.
That's true.
But
yeah.
I mean, dude, the bandwagons are awesome, dude. It's just a place to decompress for a minute, because it's always loud. And ironically, I don't like loud sounds. So it's it's just good to be able to go into the van and have a water or a beer and just breathe.
Like even if the drive is long, like you're actually sitting on something that feels like a couch or I don't know. For me it was huge. Like I was like, I don't need our Checo to like if we can just figure out a way to make something like this happen, I'll tour forever. Like I can do this. This is a good level. Like if we're never on some like crazy nice bus, that's fine. Like just this not being in a van and then showing up to a hotel at 4 a.m. is
because you did the van thing with Tony McAlpine, right?
Yeah, we did, and it was 33 days ish.
Yeah.
So it was the real thing, and yeah, I'd have to do it again if we had to do it again. Like if I had to go that route again, I wouldn't like refuse to go on the road. But man, if it's just like if we're talking about cost versus psychological health though on the tour, that's where the real, you have to value that, because at the end of the day, like you're trying to sell these shirts that, you know, people are going to have seen your set, and that's the only thing that you have to present as far as like, will you please get merch or will you please look us up after? And if you're so dead that you like seem like you don't want to be there, or you just can't play your best because Art Deco music is hard to play, then is not having the bandwagon really, is it just about money at that point? Or does it venture into other things that actually do equal money in the form of like merch sales and people checking your band out? So finding that balance of like, what can we afford versus like, can we also maybe spend a little more just so that we know we're not miserable?
Yeah.
How can we find that balance?
Like you said, like mental health, like especially on the road, that psychological health, it's like, yeah, because it can already get dicey when you're living in a 10 by 10 box, you know, for 30 days, like just emotionally. So when you can at least have some sort of comfort, and even just if it's a little fabric leather blind that, you know, kind of separates you from everything else, it's crucial. And yeah, it really does make a huge difference on your ability to perform, your ability to interact with fans. Yeah. And just overall, just, you know, feel good and be happy and healthy. And definitely, it certainly makes it quite a bit easier.
And you can write on it. I made Strut. Do you remember that day that we were in the gas tank leaked? And we were in, it was the beach day.
The beach day,
which was this off day where we had total clearance. That was the day to go to the beach. Like it was set. It was Florida.
Everybody was going to the beach.
It was Florida. It was a day off. It was one of the only days off. And it made total sense because we were like right next to the coast. You go to the beach, and then we got to get up to, I think, Georgia the next day or something. Yeah. And then our gas started leaking, and the whole 24 hours was spent finding a place to fix this leak. So there are two places that we were, was a casino parking lot and a car and a truck repair spot in the middle of nowhere. And then after that, we had to start the drive to Atlanta. We had to get the drive done, or Phil did. Yeah. But on the bus that day, just having like a table to put a keyboard controller on allowed me to take that time of not sitting in like a seat like this. And I actually like made that theme of that became Strut. So that was,
that's awesome. I didn't realize that. That's really cool.
That's like, if we didn't have that space, there would have been less productivity. Cause I love writing on the road. You should try it at some point.
Sure. Yeah,
like if cool. I always feel like writing is like a reflection of where you're at the moment. And so when I am always writing at home, things start to feel very familiar because I'm always in a familiar setting. So as soon as there's this like spice of like being in this place that I've never been, it's like what comes out always seems to be like somehow new. I think that's really cool. The main theme of Leonessa was made in Europe, like on a bus too. Like I love, I got to get back on a bus at some point. So we can finish this next album. Bus,
yeah. Speaking of which, what are you guys getting into? I saw you guys released a new music video, like what, last week?
Leonessa, came out. That was fun. It's out. we're just trying to stay visible, really. The name of the game right now. Like, don't spend all of our money on constant PR 100% all the time, because it's hard to sustain that. But at least reminders every month, couple of months that, we're moving forward, we're doing things, we're writing. And I mean, these vlogs that I do are kind of like a small wing of that for people who are like hyper interested in the process, are kind of going to get to be on that trip. But yeah, there's some stuff. There's stuff we could talk about once this hangs up, once I stop recording. But yes, there's like continual movement ahead, and that's the key.
Awesome.
It's just foot in front of the other type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, all of you guys are never, I guess the best way to put it is none of you guys are lazy at all. I mean, like you had said, you're working like 5 main jobs.
Yeah.
Richie is on a whole nother planet with this stuff he does.
Yeah.
Adam is constantly, Bentley is constantly working on, mixing and production.
Yeah, it's true.
And then Rafowitz, I guess Rafowitz is the only lazy one. He just goes to Ireland and just
it's
plays guitar.
It's Scotland, but
or Scotland, yeah.
He's gonna get on you about that. No, he's he's doing a lot of his situation is just that he has to be close to the people he has to be close to, and that's good.
Absolutely.
And
totally.
Yeah,
Joe.
We're writing on the side together a little bit, but and then Joe does work quite a bit. He's been hustling. He's been doing some mixing this year.
That's great. Yeah, and I've been seeing him do these gear demos as well, which are really cool.
Yeah.
It's certainly kind of inspired me to try and do more just, basic YouTube content.
Yeah, it's
like
good
that.
visibility. I think within the last month of doing like just these little vlogs, which take like, I'd say they take like 15 minutes to a half an hour of my day to do. I've had more mix work and more like types of work that just I've never done, essentially, like a couple type of production and mix jobs that just totally come from random spots and lessons that come from random spots. Just visibility should not be the goal, but visibility is good.
Sure.
If you make it the thing to go for, if you're like just counting views, because like some of my videos here like get pretty much nothing, but the people who care have it, and I don't need 1,000 people to call me for work in a month. I just need like 5.
Sure.
And that's that helps. So yeah, visibility. I saw that when you did for the Gojira thing. That was sick. So
thanks, man.
yeah, it's that kind of visibility does help in little increments for sure. Kind of like an investment. Because I hate social media. If I had my ways, I would like never post anything ever at this point.
Yeah.
It's no fun. But
I mean, and you don't really. I mean, if you do, it's generally about Arch Echo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I keep it mostly business and people who care can see it.
That's good. It's just less of a distraction too, man, all around.
Yeah, it's really hard. I had a rough 2020 of like consuming social media and YouTube and stuff. Like I watched a lot of YouTube and that's kind of why I'm doing the vlogging thing. It's just no more. Any time that I feel like I want to go sit and watch YouTube, I'll like sit and start making something that then is maybe something that I can film for my little vlogs there. And so as a result, that time has gotten sometimes I fail at certain times of the night. But mostly I like have transferred that time wasting into at least small bits of productivity. But
That's awesome.
it's helpful.
That's great, man.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to give yourself time off too, Just relax.
It is.
Yeah.
I've yet to find where that time in the day is, but normally it just happens. Like my body makes me, because I'll just like fall asleep or something. So like your body.
I do remember you falling asleep on the bus at like 7. You're just like,
oh, that's right.
what?
I have no recollection of those pictures at all. And then someone sent. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. But yeah, man. Well, I guess I might cut it off here, and then we'll keep talking more. I think we've done a good job of fulfilling like the podcast portion of it.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're Tyler Fritzel, the man. He's got a band, Myth of I. He's can mix for you. He can mix for front of house when that's a thing. And anything else they should know?
Nah.
And he still believes in the faceless. He's holding on.
I love him.
He's holding on.
Him.
Nice. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on again. It's been great just catching up and chatting.
Absolutely.
It's been too long.
Very good, man. All right. Well, thanks so much. And if you watch this far, thanks so much. And see you guys on the next one. Talk soon. Bye, Tyler.
But later.